The front office at the Statler Hotel represents the welcoming arms that greet the guest. The bell stand and the front desk personnel are the first people to provide the services. In this way, the department is very important to the success of the hotels. Through my observation, I have found that while the front office has had success with implementing effective practices, there are still barriers such as the lack of decision delegation and the lack of creativity that prevent the department from achieving its full potential. I will explain this analysis first by introducing the team's structure and responsibilities. Then I will touch on the key takeaways from my interview with their manager, Ms. Cheryl Cox. I will also demonstrate how some of my observations of the group's norms, processes, and tasks support the manager's viewpoints. And finally, I will explain the conclusions I have drawn from this consultation. In order to better understand this analysis, it is important to have a clear understanding of the team. There is a strong structure within the office. Cheryl is the front office manager and is staffed full-time. Directly below her are the most senior students in the Hotel Leadership Development Program, who in turn manage the assistant student managers. As for the line-level employees at both Bellston and at the front desk, it will provide more depth for us to separate the full-time staff living in Ithaca, who usually work the AM shift, from the students who usually work the night shift. There was a couple who arrived the night of my observation. As soon as their car pulled up, the guests, as shown by the black circle, were greeted by the two Bellston employees, as shown by the red circles. One of them will drive the car to the parking garage if valet service was required, and the other will help unload their luggage onto the baggage cart. This Bellston employee will then move the cart to the elevator area and wait, while the couple checks in with the front desk employees, as shown by the white circles. Finally, the couple joins the Bellston employee to be taken to their room. In order to get a deeper understanding of the front office team, I had a lengthy conversation with Miss Cheryl Cox about the culture and norms that occur in her department. One of the points that she brought up was that the team was very close, almost like a family. They have events such as parties and quiz bowls regularly, and they even have a group chat amongst all the student employees. Here on the right, you see them coming up with puns using their names that fit within the recent Star Wars hype. After I heard this from Cheryl, I was curious to see if this friendliness outside of work helped the employees to perform better at their tasks. Cheryl felt that being closed off in an office makes for poor communication with the employees. She had heard that the employees found her unapproachable and distant. In response, she decided to shift her office out into the open space, replacing the Public Board Exchange or PBX and the reservations cubicle. When I asked her how she heard about her employees' negative opinion of her, she told me that it was through the grapevine. I concluded that there was no formal anonymous platform for employees to provide feedback to the managers. She told me, in fact, that that would be a good idea to be implemented. Thus, I set out to see if Cheryl's move was effective and whether there had been any changes in such communication channels since our conversation. Finally, I asked her what she thought made Statler Hotel the best hotel in all of Ithaca, and her response was the students and the students' enthusiasm. However, she also added that I hate talking about the students all the time because the full-time staff would be thinking, hey, we work hard too. In this small aside, I noted that there might be a cultural difference between the students and the full-timers, just based on the nature of their work alone. Cheryl pointed out that while students tend to be more inquisitive and in need of training, she often looked to the full-timers for advice and left them to their own devices. I realized I had to observe one morning and one night shift to see if there was any difference in the way the two groups worked. The following observations are the results of 2 different days of observation. The morning shift actually has a very different working environment from the night shift. For example, the morning rundown meeting was not something that the students in the night shift had to conduct. I was surprised not only that Cheryl was not the one conducting the meeting, but it seemed like anyone could have conducted this very important meeting. During the meeting, not all the full-time employees were present, and those who were present left intermittently. The content of the meeting was simply to provide notes for the morning shift as to outstanding issues for each sub-department, And there were also general goals for the day, and a motivational component where a relevant quote was shared and employees were encouraged to practice the attribute of the week. The attribute for that week was communication. With the students in the night shift, the friendliness was expectedly good. The night that I observed, everyone at front desk was a hotelier, so everyone communicated very freely. Frank brought food for everyone because he knew the banquet people, in his own words. There was also this fun two truths and a lie board on the front door to the office. This whiteboard space continues to support Cheryl's assertion that there is a social facilitation for all the staff, that it is in fact a fun environment. For the morning staff, they all had nicknames such as Hot Hips Houlihan, International Student, and Mr. Well Traveled, which furthered the fun atmosphere. Because of the presence of such a friendly working environment, there was no cultural barrier between members. At Bellstand, there was Daniel, who did not speak English very well because he had trouble communicating with me. And then there was Artie, who seemed obviously younger and who turned out to be a student at IC. And there was also Lenny, who had been there much longer than anyone else and was a consistent contributor to the rundown report. However, there was no awkwardness or difficulty in communicating between them at the bell stand, and decisions were made very quickly about what needed to be done. One person could tell another person to do something very easily, and it didn't matter if it was a younger employee telling an older employee, or vice versa. Across both groups, there is an award board in the middle of the office, where anyone can award anyone a Starbuck. It celebrates the accomplishments of the staff, and based on the massive number of bucks pinned to the board, it seems like a popular program. It is good that the department is providing alternative forms of motivation to its employees. Using the Statler Starbucks, you can exchange for prizes such as a homemade dessert from Cheryl or an all-expenses-paid dinner. The bell stand uses a daily activity log to track whose turn it is to pick up a get. A get is when a bell stand employee gets to go up to the car and receive the guest and help them unload their luggage. This is the most likely avenue of them getting a tip. This log allows them to avoid the situation of one employee pushing to pick up a disproportionate number of gets and therefore swallowing up all the tips. For Cheryl, she is as busy as she says she is. PBX came to her with 2 urgent phone calls within 1 hour, and she had to go to front desk to help open a third line for guests to check out. There were constant questions from the full-time staff. She had to come out and sign the safe deposit and ensure guests' inquiries about an event booking were legitimate. Everyone deferred to her for decisions that were out of the norm, and whenever additional help was needed, a bell was rung, for example, for a PBX to come out and become a front desk agent instead. For Patrick, instead, in the night shift, he had very little to worry about. He gave a lot more care-based instructions, such as wipe down the front desk area because people are getting sick, or he asked employees, how are you guys doing? Otherwise, he had individual responsibilities, such as signing in cash deposits from other departments in the hotels, writing his performance evaluations, or doing a walk, which means inspecting the hotel's common spaces. Through my observations, I had a lot of conclusions that were worthy of a discussion. On the positive aspect, we noted that the social facilitation was obviously effective. There was improved integration of all new hires into the team on top of very strong training procedures. The cultural barriers were avoided between the full-timers and the students, but also between the non-hoteliers and the hotelier students. And finally, there was an improved work allocation and a reduced task-oriented unhappiness that I could perceive. However, on the flip side, there was not much room for creativity or innovation because there was no feedback channel. It was clear that the only feedback channel was during the performance evaluation that happened only once a semester. And there was no other way for negative feedback and only positive feedback through the Starbucks. There was very little room for delegated decision making, and all decisions seemed to have to be approved by Cheryl. All the employees seemed to be afraid of being accountable for making decisions on their own. And finally, the communication between front desk, bell stand, and the rest of the hotel can be improved with newer technology because the current infrastructure is fairly old. The front office has performed very well for many years based on the procedures and guidelines that have been inherited from employee batch to employee batch. My observations have thrown up several potential avenues to explore further, perhaps by speaking to the employees and finding out what they think about their work and their team. That will be a topic for another presentation, so I would like to thank you for your time today.